starting, it started at the end of April, middle of April. You're in the most difficult portion of the transition in human consciousness right now. These months coming, June, July, August. Empathy and empathic conditions are understood verbally. And you are beginning to acknowledge it feeling-wise. And you've heard the phrase, we are all one. Everybody's feeling the same thing. Eventually you're going to understand it. Then the process of integrating. This is what we are really trying to instill in the verbiage. And the integration is through your spiritual forces manifesting through your body in clarity and in function. So the world's going to find out that everyone is a medium. Right now, you're using the word empathy for the feeling and connections. It's much more than that. You have definitive, cognizant abilities that you were born with. And the road to that discovery is only within yourself. That's why we use certain phrases and certain structures in sentences to create an awareness within you of where your dependency relies upon. Many beings do not like the word God. They want a name. They want this and that, and this and that, and this and that. But inherently in you, you know what it means. You know what it is, and you know what you're not. And that disparity there between the God I am that beings like to go around saying and the God that is God, that supports everything. The trees, the cockroaches, the bees, and the birds, the fish in the sea, and supporting what is termed life and everything. It's the same being, same force. It's more than a force. It's a conscious awareness that runs through everything. And as it runs through you, the training, you being the individual human, as it runs through you, it's given you the opportunity to recognize it in everything else. And then you will really recognize it within you. That's how it works. You look for God within others, other things. What I mean by look is you recognize it there. Whatever the action is, there's a judgment required. There's the good and the bad thing. It's basically learning mediumship and what you want to entertain within your system. You get the entertainment within your system from thoughts now. That's what you're doing. Why there's so much argument. Too many words now. Too many. And it takes interpretation for the word to settle within the system of self. What our mission is in job, basically you call jobs, is to instruct ones how to identify themselves and God at the same time within them, moving through them. You've been given the wordings, God's path is through the water, You're 60% water. God's constantly moving through the water with you. Now you're being put in a position where you're going to have to understand your thoughts. Where they come from? Are they yours? Which side of your brain gathered that information? Your radio tower here. Which side picked it up?
On top of the head.
On the top of the head, left side of the head, right side of the head, or the back of the head. You will notice, if you start realizing which position the thought came in, you will notice whether the influence was a good one for you or not. That's where you have to start discerning. And then you start discerning which side you want to receive from. And eventually you'll decide to receive from the upper back portion of your cranium here. You'll receive there, and it'll go down to the what you call the junction at the spine, that there's a little knot there at the back of your head, that bone thing there. That's where your center is coming from. You want to have...
That's where your what is coming from?
Your center.
Center.
What we will call your center. That's
the one that regulates the eyes?
It will regulate the eyes.
The one that we took a picture of you with your finger there?
Yes,
Ah.
that one. And then you'll find out that you are within yourself perceiving through many levels. Right now, you just use your physical eyes, you see, and you automatically have an instinctive reaction. This is good, that's bad, that's pretty, that's not looking so good. It's there, just by the seeing things. Empathy is the same way. You're seeing it, but you don't know how to balance it. When you say peace to all beings, and when you understand that is a call to an entity that knows what peace is and how to create it, because he creates peace wherever he goes, part of his portion, then you understand the significance of the water within you and the significance of your thoughts when you drink the water, not just to quench your thirst. When you drink your water, you should slow down and know that you are making contact with the God force, the one that created the water, the one that created all things, the one that understood what the dew and the dust are. Because you came from dust, you saw the dew, and the dew enlightened you and manifested out through it. Everyone did. That's how it started. And now you're in the process of understanding that conscious liquid force. It is really the most nurturing force in nature. Provides the opportunity for growth for all things. It is also the most destructive force in nature. You have 1 gallon of water, weighs 8 pounds, roughly. How much does your ocean weigh? And that's pressing on the surface of the earth in places. And there's a response on that pressure with the land animals' consciousness walking, the breathing ones, the air breathers, not counting the whales and the dolphins. The human condition, hasn't learned the significance and the sacredness of the human body, because literally it is a walking temple with what we would call it the Buddha ones in there. You'll have a Buddha one, everyone has a Buddha one, and they have this quest, and this is your word, for enlightenment. But you are enlightened. You already know what you shouldn't do. You already know what you should do. And the consciousness doesn't want to do it. There's a coming, an overwhelming need to disprove God. God, that word. That one word. and you're feeling it. That's what you're feeling now. Because there's so much disturbance in your, we're going to call it a current. The current around the planet, the electrical current. You term it gravity and other things. But it's an electrical positioning of nature, we're going to say that. The force of what you term God is electrical. That's why it passes through the water and moves through so fast. It's not a concept of thinking. As you start approaching the divine positions, you can't think. You can't think. You meet lightning bolts before you even think. The process thinks before you think. That's where your thoughts come from. But you haven't trained the receptive qualities within you. And by that I mean those qualities that nurture. Nurture anything. Nurture anything. Take care, feed your birds and feed the squirrels and feed the rabbits and allow nature to be nature. When you allow nature to be nature, your life, your physical life, becomes cleaner because nature knows what to do before you do. Human condition reacts to nature, doesn't understand to work with nature. You barely understand the phases of the moon in the astrological understanding, and you get caught up in astrology and this, that, and the other. But you're on a quest for self, in a manner, and you're also, in the understanding of the quest for self, is the need to be available service for others. Basically, in the idea of quest for self, you know how to protect space. Your inner being knows and works toward the safety of space so you can enter it. That's what goes on. Yet you have now confusion and despair running because your religious constructs are not understood, and because of overlords within the religions, we will say it that way. But there's only really one truth, and the truth is called doctrine, which means law, and there are laws. You know you cannot eat fire. Little flame, it burn you. Basic laws. One of the first basic laws in the teachings of communication between the spirit world and the physical world was to love God above all things. And right there became a requirement for definition. Right there. Instead of understanding that that word represented the presence of everything in the space that you're in the manner God put it there, in the manner you called it there, in the manner you used it to support yourself while you were there. It helps the overcoming of the sense of loneliness, just seeing another entity. If you don't see another entity, you're truly lonely. There's a fear thing that comes in the construct. And that's the other key. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Because you start understanding yourself and the relationship to nature, who God works through. In trying to name this entity or create structure around it, you're going to find it's an impossible task. Nature is the structure. And as she starts bending to change belief systems, then the prayers to God start increasing. For example, hurricanes, tsunamis, people caught in these great conflagrations of fire and earthquakes, crushed in buildings, they're praying. And they're surviving some. But that's what it takes for an understanding that there's more than you here. And the difficult part now is you're going through that. The word prayer is another word beings don't like. I'd rather meditate. That's true. Meditation balances the system. But in the meditation, there's verbiage, the repetition verbiage, that takes you to the calm space. And one of the strongest you can use is Om Tat Sat, which means this is that. That you are there and aware, and that is aware of you too at the same time. So in equal space. That takes you to the meditation. But then you've got to stop. And then you find yourself in the presence and don't do anything. And then you'll find the presence will move through you to do something. You just made yourself available. You've made yourself, in a sense, a doorway. But it doesn't elevate you above another. In fact, it has a tendency to increase your humility and the understanding of the fear and the repression that has been put upon ones for not allowing their own growth in the manner. The flowers sing to one another, and they communicate. And the presence of a flower, just looking at the flower, has an effect on one's. That's a healing in the process of remembering something. Because the flower grew, and it was grown, as you say, produced by the divine. They sing, they do things. You too are a flower, but you haven't proceeded along the flower line, you proceeded along the weeds. But the weeds too are beautiful and they serve a purpose. So you understand the growth of that process. Now, a lot of the difficulty is going to come in your next month, your June, July, is when your chakras start opening involuntarily. In other words, you didn't tell it to open, it just opened on you. There are petals there, and they have extreme force and function. They have authority in the realm of the world that they are part of. They know it, and all the other chakras know it also. And everyone, when another one opens. The process is going to start at the solar plexus. Well, it started at the root, and you beings know what the root does, and you know what the navel does. That's where you're stuck. But you're going up to the solar plexus now, which has whole another responsibility. The solar plexus is where you meditate in yourself. It's also your power force. It's your direct connection to the force that you call God. It is linked there. There's a cord there. And this is why beings are going to feel very nauseous, very dizzy, because they're meditating. One is not going to move, it's going to sit stable. And the kundalini that comes up to the left side and the right side are going to have their jurisdictions. They're going to start moving up, and you're going to have dizziness. You need to tighten yourself around your spine. You need to. You're going to need to say, peace to all beings. Take your right index finger and put it at your solar plexus and find yourself, because that is where you are. You're not in your head any longer. You can't be, because you can't keep up with all the information that's coming out. You're going to have to understand that you're a tree or a flower, but a walking tree. A walking tree. That's why the humans became vertical versus the other creatures. It was the observance of God, God looking, seeing, receiving, we'll say, tall structures, trees, how beautiful they were, the magnificence of them. And since you're the children of God, we'll say, He enjoyed that magnificence and allowed you to be moving trees, walking trees, walking trees. And when this strength comes, this force, this presence to show itself to create the understanding beyond belief, it's going to put a great weight on the human condition. By that I mean it'll hit you and you will not be able to move. Your hand, your arm, your foot, your leg, you'll be able to think maybe, and you think you're catatonic, but you'll still be breathing. You'll know you've been grabbed. And then to let go, and then portions of your physical system will acknowledge what happened, and then you're not catatonic, and you're reflecting on what was that, because it's beginning to happen to ones that think they are mediums, psychics, and things. There's a force now coming to correct that, to correct the improprieties that have been used against ones. By that I mean improprieties being used to control beings instead of instructing beings so they have their own individual concept of freedom and presence, of self and nature. That's what's where your religions forgot themselves. They forgot to teach doctrine. They forgot the doctrine. The doctrine is law. Law is the teacher. Not the verbiage of the humans. That's transmission of energy for instruction. They're not the overlords of this thing. The doctrine itself is a doctrine. It's a law. It's called the law of life. Just everywhere. It is an isness, ever present. The doubt of the authority of God is so prevalent in your world today, even with the religions arguing one against the other and this, that, and things. They're so interested in preserving their own structure, they're not even trying to assist anyone else. But they tell everyone else to assist, but they do nothing. So that's where you're caught. And in that process, and it's happened with many worlds before, in your world, in your physical world, it happened with Egypt. It happened with Egypt. That's why you don't see what Egypt was. It's all under the sand. All you have left is the remnants of those pyramids. They're much bigger than you think they are. And there are pyramids all over. And you're even finding there's a correlation between the pyramids and cities and constellations. That's in your news. A young 15-year-old boy looking at constellations and cities found one. Why? Yeah, why? How? Who's talking to him? Who's guiding that influence? Huh? This is an exposure coming on. How did those cities get covered over? Nature herself did it. What happened to the people? You have no records there. None that you've discovered yet. You're going to find that the constellations that you are from are working with you. The connections, the stars that you are from. You're actually one of those stars sitting out there watching yourself here. But you don't remember that. You look and reflect and you see the beauty and brilliance there. And sometimes they twinkle. Well, you should remember that's part of you acknowledging you. Not in the thought stream. Not in the thought stream. Because thought streams require completion. In other words, everyone needs to understand exactly what was said. The minute you say something, there'll be someone with a question. Question this, question this, question this, question. To align unto their understanding. You could tell ones how to do it, but they don't do it. I will tell you, this is how you do it. You talk to a tree, wait for an answer. You talk to a flower, wait for an answer. And you don't listen here. You listen in the heart chakra. Talk to a cockroach, wait for an answer. Talk to a bird. The birds are more willing to communicate than any other creature right now. So you should listen to the birds. And you have to be careful about the madness of crows. And you're going to have to understand the nature of the animal kingdom. Each has a specific frequency, they do specific things. But you've forgotten that. You're going to find out that you are the natural being. You're going to find out that you are the creator in your moment of calling the bird to the space, the squirrel to the tree, the cat to the door. But how did you do that? You think they're bugging you or acknowledging or want attention from you. But you've got to remember you called it because of the presence, but you don't know how you did it. It's within inside what you term the fantasy state, wish state, dreaming state. You have that call for nature to confirm that, number one, you're not alone, and number two, if you paid attention to them, the answers would be there, because they deliver the answers to you. Even the thought of beings can bring a bird to you to remind you of the being. And you can't get caught up in the control issue of it. You need to understand the acknowledgement of it and how you did it. And then things work out peacefully and calmly. You're going to understand what peace really is. And the empathy that ones are beginning to feel all over is what's causing your tiredness. What's causing we'll call it the drain. The drains you down. You have to learn to lift up through it. You're going to have to learn you have another being in your body walking you. Initially, you start off with 3 beings. Initially, because they come in with the thought process. But then you realize as you grow that you have 7 chakras, and there's a being in each chakra. Well, metaphysical beings understand the words of these things, but they have no idea of the application and the working of it. When one chakra goes to introduce itself to another chakra in your world, you go through each one, and they merge into a divine personality. Well, each one is a wedding. A wedding. Like you have your physical marriage ceremony and wedding things. But each conjunction with the chakra as they meet is a wedding, becomes a wedding. And then you understand the temple nature of you, inside you, and then you begin to clean up the inside of you by simply drinking the water and saying a prayer or a blessing over the water for the interior portion and the beings within you. The one that's working with your heart, the one that's working with your lungs, the one that's working with your kidneys and liver and spleen. Each one's a different being. You can drink the water and direct the energy of peace and healing to that particular organ.